Back to Business, a program created to highlight local businesses here on Long Island. I'm Erica Bradley, Executive Director of North Shore Television. And with me today is Anthony Ponzone, the President of Wall Street Banking Services. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Erica. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you too. So we chatted a little bit before the show started.
We did.
But I wanted to start from the beginning. So you used to be a banker on Wall Street.
Correct.
How did that start?
You know, I was an athlete in college and very good with numbers and was going to make the pros. So I figured, what's the next best thing? So Wall Street. So what I did was right out of college, went to Wall Street and basically started from the ground up back in the 80s when it was just a different business. And I just loved it. You know, I love being, with the client. I love the numbers. To me, it's always about numbers with me. You know, and I think I'm very good, good with it. And I just love it. You know, did it for almost 20 years.
Is that what you went to school for?
I went to school for finance, marketing and management, mainly finance. So yes, that was my major in school. Yes.
So I imagine that working on Wall Street, you're working with a lot of big clients, big businesses. But you started your own company and are working with small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Like, what made you decide to do that?
That's actually a great question. I handle all the banks, really in the world, in the big banks. And I was always the front person. Even though I handle a lot of the administrative work, a lot of the numbers, I was also the front person. So, if there's ever an issue with a client or bank, they would send me wherever I had to go to deal with the client. So I always had that relationship with, now it's a corporate bank, but I always had that relationship. And I just took that 20 years of experience, knowing banking, Wall Street, the numbers, and I took that and I said, something, it's time. It's time for me to kind of stake my own claim. So I was 40 at the time, and I said, now's the time. So at the time, my wife wasn't working. She's a teacher now. And I just said, I gave him 2 weeks notice and decided if I don't leave now, love what I did, it was just time for me to just really see what I can do.
That's pretty bold, though. If she didn't have a job at the time.
It was nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie. So yes, I got 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning every single day because I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was definitely financing, but what? Why would someone come to me? And I found my niche, and it's dealing with the small business owner, and I started with that, and it just it grew from there, and I became my own client. And that's why I think hopefully I do well now is I know what a client needs because I was them when I first started. So I know all the stress that they had, and it's always about getting money. Typically if you have a good staff, all right, but I always felt back then, it's always about securing financing. A lot of them, if they had that extra money, they can really get to that next level. And that's where I kind of came in and worked. So
you've been there. You've been in their shoes.
Yes.
So you have that connection with them.
I do.
Yeah, and then they could feel that. And they trusted that, I guess.
It is. I speak fast. I get excited. I look at them right in the eye, and I feel that, I wear my life on my sleeve. I've been there. And if they think that, I was on Wall Street, that everything was always great. No, things weren't always great. So, back in 2008, I was already on my own. And no fault of me or other small, businesses. It was bad. Everyone in the whole finance just didn't know what. Everybody was to be blamed. The bankers, the people borrowing money, everybody was to be blamed. And so it really impacted for what I did. Because a lot of what I did back then was always securing financing. And then I did other type of transactions, mortgages and title insurance, all that stuff. I did all that. But it always started from deal with the small business owner. That was kind of my niche, almost 15 years ago. And I just felt like, because when they tell me their struggles, I know, I've been through it. I know what it takes every single day having to pay bills, not having that salary coming in the beginning. So when I talk to them, they understand, like, I've been there.
Yeah.
What better way is someone that's been there? I can sit there and preach to them all day long, but if I didn't go through it, good and bad, it's because it wasn't always about the money.
Yeah.
For me, I've been very fortunate, thank God, but it's always about just trying to help that small business owner and hoping that I have a small part into their future success. And when it did happen, or it does happen, it's so exciting,
Now, when you say securing financing, is that like just finding loans, or is that finding investors? Like, what is that exactly?
For me, it's really securing financing. So, people always say, well, just tap into your house. Just give equity in your house. Just go for your retirement money. I stress almost every day with all my clients that should always be your last resort. There's so many options and lenders out there that will loan without using your house or your retirement money. It may cost you a little bit more money, but you're not putting anything up. So God forbid something happens, they're not going to take away your house or your retirement for your kids, or for your retirement. So if you have a hobby and it could be a small business, start it. And it works. So for me, it was always getting that financing in the beginning, and then a lot of what I do is I kind of dive into there. Get a little bit different than in another lending company is. Not that I charge fees. For me, it's really understanding the business. Sometimes by tweaking certain parts of their financials, like small tweaks, we'll get them better financing, cheaper financing, and that's where I think I come in. And I really go in and look at everything. I'll deal with your accountant. I'll deal with the attorney. I'll deal with whomever they want. All the partners. We'll sit in a conference room and we come up with a game plan. I was a former athlete. I coach high school sports, and for me, you have to always have a game plan. Things happen. Who gets hurt? Weather. Things happen. You have to be able to adjust into the situation. And like I said, I've been through it all in business, good, bad, and so I know how to steer the car in a different direction. If I see you getting off the track.
So what you just said seems to be talking about somebody who's kind of already in business. But what about somebody who's thinking about starting a business? How could you help them?
Getting financing for a startup, a little harder.
Yeah.
A little harder. And again, people will tell them, well, just tap into your house again. And I'll just say, well, you may not need a lot of money in the beginning. And it's not like back in the day, 5 years ago, where you had to be in business for 2 or 3 years, you have to be profitable, and you should be. But what if it is a startup? Or what if you just started a couple of months ago and you need a little bit of money? So part of what I do is I will coach them, and kind of tell them the do's, the don'ts, things lenders look at, all right? Really just try not to use your equity in your home. I'm going to keep repeating that because it's to most people, it's just the easier way. It's the cheapest way, but at what risk? And there are other ways of getting the money. Maybe not. You need X amount of dollars. Do it in stages. We say do it in tranches every couple of months. Again, secure the financing before you need it, so it's there for when you do. I will say this to a client every day I talk to them. Secure the financing before you need it, so it's there for when you do. Because when you wait until you're desperate, lenders see it. Your numbers or your financials may not look as strong as what it did a few months ago, where it would have been easier to secure the financing. And there's so many products out there where you don't have to pay interest until you draw down the money, such as a line of credit, right? That's probably a lot of what I do, where it's you tap into kind of like a home equity without using your home, where you only pay interest on what you draw down, but you have access to that money. So if a client needs $50,000, I'll say get 100. Don't take the 100 if you don't need it, but it's there for when you do. And then they call it stacking. I can go to a couple different lenders to secure X amount of dollars. And if you need it, go with the cheapest, because all the rates will vary. And then from there, you just start paying it down.
That makes a lot of sense now. So because my next question was going to be, somebody's afraid of that risk. Why take on more debt when you don't have to? But you're not really at that point. You just have like a line of credit. In case
line of credit. But debt, let's say, it's a double-edged sword. A debt could crush your business, but it could be life-saving. And again, what I think, hopefully, what I do is, at Wall Street Banking Services, what we do is, again, I dive in, and I see your numbers, because every single day, whether it's once a week, once a month, whenever we do talk, I look at all the financials. And it's mainly the bank statements, something that's so simple, and if people think, it's just, this is what lenders look at, especially if it's unsecured. They want to make sure that, can you manage your money?
What do you mean by unsecured?
Unsecured meaning you're using no collateral. So God forbid you don't pay, you're personally guaranteeing it, but they're not going to take away your house, not your car, your retirement. So you're using no collateral. So it's unsecured. Basically like a credit card, but not a credit card. And you tap into it. So if you need money, you put it right into your account. It's all automated. You take what you need. But again, probably as important of withdrawing is when do you pay it back? Because if you do it the right way, it's so inexpensive. If you do it the right way, and like most people, well, I'll pay next month. And that's where you throw good money after bad, and I'll tell them, well, here's what you have to do is, again, I'm kind of like the CFO without paying a CFO salary. I always tell them, let me be an extension of your company. All right, I have no allegiance to any lender. My allegiance is to you. Let me be your eyes, your ears. Someone else to kind of bounce off ideas. Sometimes having an extra person besides a partner, that you can kind of, well, what do you think about this? And they can reach me. I was at 24/7, but pretty much 7 days a
Were
week.
you sleeping?
Every now and then my
Having
phone's
some
beeping. My wife's
anxiety.
like, maybe you shouldn't be. But they know that. I'm pretty easy to get hold of.
Yeah.
And I have a staff of in my office. Always in the beginning, I try to have my new clients always deal with me. Because for me, I don't know what the problem is. Maybe there's no problem.
Yeah.
Maybe you tap into other source of income instead of going out to get money. I mean, there's so many scenarios. That's why I tell the client, you got to tell me everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. I will figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And together we'll figure out the best course
They're
of action.
coming to you to solve some issues.
Yeah.
Don't hide anything.
Right. I'm going to find out.
Not going to help.
And so what's it going to do?
Right.
So for the X amount of dollars, meanwhile you had a bad judgment, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll always say is, the good thing about now than maybe even 10 years ago, lenders understand it. Maybe it's not your big banks. Okay, they are very selective, but they're second-tier banks. Pretty reasonable rates. They understand. They understand that things happen. And I would say, my clients, some of them are pretty big companies. Some are mom and pops. We all need money. And sometimes it's expansion. Maybe you're going to buy a building, and you're going to buy, and I do commercial financing as well. But I would say most of what I do is really that unsecured. Because a lot of people don't really have collateral, and they don't want to use their house.
Right. And so how hard is it to get that unsecured?
It's actually, the good thing now is lenders get it. Like I have access to like Wall Street money, hedge money, private money, banks. So I have access. And for me, it's every client is so different. Is it a short-term line of credit or loan? Is it long-term? Is it maybe a year or two, whatever? So that's why together, you got to tell me everything. Let me talk to your accountant. Let me talk to your attorney. We'll come up with a plan. And then I'll always orchestrate it, and then we'll come up with a plan. And again, things happen, people get sick. I mean, I can tell you a million, no control of you, but just that's where.
Or whatever. You start a new business and you made a mistake.
Anything. Right.
Like, not everybody's perfect,
Right.
but let's
Right.
stop it. Stop the bleed.
And it's actually funny you're saying that. One of the things that I always say is, like, I always say, I treat your money like it's my money. And they know that.
Yeah.
Like, what would I do? And if you're one of my kids, what would I have my kids do? So I take that very, very, very serious. Because in some situations, I'll say, now is not the right time. I make no money, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could be in a worse situation. So here's what you do. And I'll teach them certain things. And it's like, it seems so simple, like depositing checks. Perfect, for instance, is, well, I'll wait until Friday. Well, what about Monday to Thursday? So yeah, you may have every Friday, 4 times a month, big deposits. The other 4 days, it's negative, which is a no-no, or it's so low. So you have to manage your money. Manage it like a business. That's why you start this business.
I don't think a lot of people would even think about that.
They don't think about that.
Yeah. Like, it just seems obvious to do it on a Friday.
I want to
Makes
go
sense.
stay in line at the bank, and it's so automated these days. You can take
Yeah.
a picture of a check, wires. People get it so many different, and it's when do you deposit? Again, some things that I talk about on the first conversation
Yeah.
is after I look at their financials, I could tell what they're doing. I know what they're not doing, and I'll ask them like, why are you waiting? So tweaks like that.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. The first meeting, so it's a consult?
It's a consult, yes.
Yeah. And so just walk us through a quick consult.
The good thing about what I do is I can handle 50 states, so it doesn't really matter. And with today's technology, that's how I met you first, Zoom, right?
The one really good thing that came through COVID, right, is
And you can Zoom.
the connection.
I do like the personal touch,
Yeah.
but again, if my client is in California, you can't always just, go on a plane the way it used to be. So, having today's technology is great. So my first, if it's Long Island, I'm always, sitting down with them.
Yeah.
And I'll say, bring everything. If you're not sure, bring it. And I lay everything out on the table, and we go through it. What I try to do is prior to that, maybe for like an hour prior to the consultation, I'll go through it. This way I'll know the first 5 minutes where I think either the issues are, what the strengths are,
Yeah.
best course of action. And then together, because I can say, well, let me do everything. This is your money. You better know where it's going. I can coach you, I can help you, but what I won't do is like kind of tell you what to do. Well, why is it? And you may have another way. Well, maybe you're getting a big contract in a couple of months, that your financials may not show that just by telling me, so we plan for that. That's where open communication, and you gotta tell me everything.
Yeah. So they come in, lay everything down, you're reviewing everything that you've already reviewed, but now
Yes.
you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, all right, this is what I can do for you.
Right.
This is how I can help you.
Right. And like I said, it's typically why they even called me. It's getting money.
Yeah.
I need X amount of dollars. Why? Well, why? Maybe sometimes it's negotiating what you currently have. Then maybe you're going to free up a little bit of money. You know what I'm saying? So what happens to people like, well, I need an extra X amount of dollars, but if you just lower the interest rate or lower what you already have, that extra money that's freed up, you can use that.
Yeah.
In some situations.
Right.
Or I'll get you money, let's fix this, you pay off the line of credit, now you're back down to zero. Now, the good thing about a line of credit, unlike a loan, it's a year, 2, 5-year loan. At the end of it, you got to apply again if you want the money again. A line of credit, what I love, is you have access to that money. So if you have a $100,000 credit line and you take $50,000 of it, you paid off in 2 months, you're down to zero, but you have access to the 100 again. So I always tell my clients, get as much as you can, line of credit. Don't get the loan. Sometimes you have to do both. Stack both of them. But if you think you don't need it, you get double the money because you never know. And sometimes it's just maybe getting inventory at a cheaper rate because you bought a little bit more. So it's things like that.
Well, look, what just happened now, right? Nobody could have guessed that COVID was going to happen.
Right.
Right. How do you know? You can't plan for that.
And I hate saying it, but I mean, it was probably one of my better years only because people were scared. So they're like, all right, how do we get access to money? So banks were still working technically. I have an office in my house, so it was easy for me to get a hold of people. But there was a panic. So they didn't know if it was going to be 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. We really had no idea. Another thing with me is I leave politics at the door. I could care less if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent. It does not matter. You need money? I'm here to help you.
We're all trying to do the same thing: raise your family,
it.
live, be happy.
We all have bills to pay.
Yeah.
You have a mortgage to pay. So
Right.
yeah, I always leave that. I always say, it's usually not an issue, but I always say I don't really care. It doesn't really matter to me. My job is to help you. How do I get you to the next level?
Right.
So you could sleep at night. I've been there. 3 or 4 in the morning, knowing that you have bills to pay.
Yeah.
At the time I had 3 kids when I left Wall Street. Now I have 4, and it's it's a good excitement because I wasn't fired. It was kind of on my terms, but it's nerve-wracking. And my wife went back to work just for her own. She's a teacher, and she missed the kids. She went back. I started my business, and then I'm like, this is a niche that I don't think a lot of companies do. So I do things a little bit different. Outside just getting money. So it's kind of my little niche. And I do industries that a lot of lenders don't like. And that's probably my claim to fame. Contractors, things like that lenders just typically don't like. I have lenders, that's their niche. So, dealing with me is I'll have 100 lenders, and each lender has their niche. Niches that they don't like, industries that they do like. And I know the do's and don'ts with them. We never, ever, ever lie to a lender. There's certain things you have to say, and that's why you keep it very simple, and it works.
I mean, interesting though, because the last couple of years, contractors
Right.
have been like going nuts.
Even and it's funny you're saying that is that's probably I think one of the main reasons why currently lenders are nervous. Can COVID happen again? And again, you couldn't go into people's houses. Your plumbers, electricians, your general contractors. So what if it does happen again? That's their worry. So I always look at, for me, the past predicts the future. So I look at, this past year. Lenders may only look at the last couple of months. If I have a client that maybe is on the fence with a lender, that I know this lender is actually perfect, I'll look at maybe 6 months. And I'll try to go in front of the underwriter and say, listen, I know the last 3 months is okay. Maybe it's a seasonal. But in the next couple of months, it's going to explode. Restaurants. A lot of lenders hate restaurants. I don't know why. And if it's not a seasonal type restaurant, but my lenders love it. So again, it's by having, I don't say the right mate, but the right consultant like myself that just knows who to go to.
Yeah.
You know, now where I make the most money, it's what's right for the client. You know, so that's what I try.
Right. Well, that's your expertise area. That's, you know, you're not going to go to, you know, a foot surgeon, you know, if you
Right.
had a tooth
For your heart.
problem. You know?
Right, right.
Yeah, you want to know somebody who specifically, you know, knows what you're looking for. So you were talking about, you know, planning out a little bit, and that was going to be my next question. How do you help small business owners plan for long-term financial growth and stability?
So what I do is, if they have a financial advisor, I know we kind of talked about this in the beginning.
Yeah.
That was really never my life on Wall Street. Again, I was the traditional banker, you know,
Yeah.
back kind of old school banker. For me is, let me deal with your advisor. Let me deal with your account. Let me deal with your attorney. You know, once we know X amount of dollars, how do you invest that? You know, and that's where I'll hand it off to whoever the advisor is. You know, that's probably one of the things that I don't do for a reason. I mean, I was licensed to do everything. It's just my niche is just getting access to the money. And then, you know, I'm not looking at charts all day, you know, outside for myself. So you need someone like that you feel the most comfortable with, you know. So even on Wall Street, I always handle after they did the transaction to make sure everything settled correctly was always my thing. You know, I did all the foreign exchange, all that stuff. But for me, it was always dealing with the client, you know. So what you got to look at is always have access to money. It always goes back to this, you know. Not where you just keep borrowing and borrowing, you know. You have to manage it correctly. So if I'm dealing with your financial advisor, we'll always make sure, I'll try to make sure that they'll take a portion of it. You know, another thing, what I do is I do a whole budget for them as part of what I do. And to make sure that, you know, X amount of dollars is put away for your retirement, if this is their main business. Maybe it's to pay your bills. Maybe it's to pay yourself. You know, with small business owners, very often, they don't pay themselves. They're always the last to pay. You shouldn't be the last to pay. Now, if you do it correctly, you know, it's your business. Pay yourself whatever the number is. You know, work with me. Work with your account.
On those shows, right? They're
I'm sorry?
you see those like on those shows where, like, you know, like, I'm paying everybody, but I don't have any money coming in for myself.
It's probably 99% of the time, you know, all the way once a year, I get that one big. What if that once a year doesn't happen?
Yeah.
Or COVID happens? You know, so for me, it's, you know, it's like martial arts. You do things very consistently. You do the same thing. So it's just a creature of habit. And that's what I really do my best is, you know, when things maybe are not that great, is teaching you good habits. You know, always put, you know, every dollar you take a percentage of it and you put it away. And then I kind of coach them that. You know, sometimes it's getting access to that money to maybe do parts of your business, but as you're making money, you know, and it's day to day. You know, and all I'll say is let me talk to your bookkeeper. You know, if you have maybe 5 or 6 employees, if it's an outside bookkeeper, let me talk to them. Maybe we can wait an extra day or two to make a payment on a bill.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to help your cash flow. So it's things like that people, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I get a bill, I just pay it.
Yeah.
You know, which is not a bad thing. It's just when do you pay it?
Yeah.
You know.
So it's interesting because you're not just like, hey, I got you this money, have a good day. You know, you're like, here's the money. Let me talk to your people.
Right.
Let's make sure you're going to use it right so
Exactly
it
right.
lasts.
Right.
You know.
That's exactly what it is. It's you know, sometimes it's bills that they didn't pay for, you know, and you know, part of what I also do, and I don't charge. It's just, again, I'm with you. You know, I'm in the trenches with you. Is let me talk to some of your expenses, and maybe there's a way to negotiate. Your accountant won't do that. I mean, it's just not what they do. You know, part of what my company does is let's see if we can negotiate. Sometimes by cutting 10% or 5% of your monthly bill, whatever it is, you know, pennies become dollars. If you can save money or maybe reallocate it into another bill, you know, and what I always tell my clients is always communicate. So if you're running into a little bit of trouble, you know, which happens to almost everybody sometime in their career, contact your lenders. You know, they may push you to make sure you pay them, but at least they know that you're doing the right thing. You know, so I always say you have to communicate. Go to bed, you know, let them know if there's an issue. Sometimes they'll extend it. Maybe they'll load a payment and they'll put on there's so many ways you have to communicate.
Yeah.
You know, don't not do nothing.
Yeah.
Which is the worst thing.
Don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
Yeah.
Because again, it's going to pop up.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's so bad that now you're really behind the 8 ball, and then what do you do? You know, and then the client, then the lender, whoever you're dealing with, that you owe a bill to, it snowballs. You know, and then one becomes 5, and then so just communicate.
And if you start communication in the beginning, from the very beginning, it's easier.
That's correct.
You know, instead of like now you're in the hot seat,
Right.
and you're scared,
Right, and you're desperate, and
yeah,
you're
desperate.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And then, and, again, whether it's a lender, because I deal with lenders mostly, they see it. And at the end of the day, they just want their money. Now, again, unsecured, so they can't attack anything.
Yeah.
They'll try to go after you, and some of them could be a little rough. Again, secure the financing before you need it, so it's there for when you do. You may not need it for 2 years. Get as much line of credit now, as much as you can. So you could always tap into it. And even if the rate gets a little bit higher, you talk to the lender. Sometimes they even call me up. Is a way we could like consolidate or whatever. So I'll contact my people and see if we could kind of load just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just a couple of bucks,
Yeah.
and it's not anything big, or maybe just defer it for a few months. Put it, X amount of dollars on the back end of the loan, of the line of credit. So there's, these lenders,
ways.
they understand it. This is
Yeah.
their business.
Yeah.
It's
They're
not.
not just out to get you.
They're not out to get you. Now, some aren't as nice, but
Yeah.
and listen, they're out there.
Right,
And,
right.
and I do my best to really, really go to the right lenders. And like I said, it happens most of the time. A lot of times, is a client is so behind that you could take so much money that you can't afford to make that payment. So yeah, now you're paying off whatever you owe, but you're so behind, and then it just snowballs.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you keep getting access to money, and then it's just, then you can't fix it. It's just so
Yeah.
I do my best to not let it get to that part.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if you think it's going to happen in a couple months because it's seasonal, contact your lender.
Yeah.
Contact whoever your expenses with.
Contact you. Let me
Contact
help
me.
you.
I'll be happy to help.
Well,
But, yeah.
sometimes you just need somebody
Yes.
who's a voice of reason anyway.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
just about, for any kind of problem, I feel, right?
Right.
You just need somebody with a calm head to come in and be like, listen, not as
Right.
bad as you thought, that maybe we could do this.
Exactly right.
Let's look at this over,
Yeah.
I mean, you get scared. What can you do?
You do, especially if it's not a hobby, it's how you're paying your bills, how you take care of
Yeah.
your family. And again, I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there. I left Wall Street at gave my 2 weeks notice. Been doing this since college, ever
Yeah.
after college. So I've been there. It motivated me knowing that I have a family that I have to take care of,
Mm-hmm.
and it got me to where I am. But at the time, I didn't know, is this going to work? Why would someone come to me and not go to the big banks?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with the big banks. It's just they're very selective.
Right, right.
And like I said, a lot of these lenders, they understand that. So they're like, all right, we all know the big banks are. We're right below them.
Yeah.
Still reasonable, and a little more flexible, I feel. And they'll work with you a lot easier, because they're not these big corporate structures, So
And you've been doing this a long time, so you have good relationships with them.
I do. And there are times you can't always, if everything's important, then nothing's important. So I don't keep going back to the well and say, oh, there's some clients that I know because I'm with them that it's only going to be a couple of months, and I'll go I'll talk to the underwriter, I'll talk to whomever, and say, listen, here's what's going on. Okay, the next few months is going to whatever the situation is. Let me be your voice. Let me be the bad guy.
Yeah.
You be the good guy. And I'll ask them, and sometimes they'll say, well, we can't. A lot of times I say, okay, what if we do it this way?
Right.
So at the end of the day, they just want their money. And they don't want you to totally default, because then it looks bad for everybody.
Yeah, right.
So that's
Yeah.
that's not their answer either. But,
So I have lots of questions, but we've run out of time.
okay, wow,
And so it goes. But before we end, you have a podcast.
I do.
So
Yep.
if people would like to tune into that, how could they hear?
Okay, I'm actually doing a couple different podcasts. My website is actually I have two. I'm known as Anthony the Money Guy.
Oh, that's
I know.
right.
Ironic, and my website is Wall Street Banking Services. Nice and easy. Again, like I said earlier, always on the first call, you're always dealing with me. And then a lot of time you're dealing with me throughout the month. But if it's operational, my people will do it. But you're always dealing with me. My podcast, which we're actually going to be doing a couple of new ones, it's how to secure financing without using the home. I mean, that's really what it is. And you see all these podcasts with 1 million, and some are great. Some are good. Some of them, it's just, I try to do it where I know what my clients need. So that's why I'm giving not to promote me, because you can use anybody you want. For me, it's more informational, like kind of what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have like segments, like maybe it's just grants. We didn't even talk about that. The employee retention grant, which we do. People thought that was a hoax.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things ever. It's a grant. You don't pay back.
Right.
It's not even a loan.
Right.
It's been around for a couple of years. We did it 2 years ago. Everyone thought it was it's not real. It is real. So I'll have a podcast for the grants. have podcasts for unsecured. Maybe you're buying a commercial building, and maybe some other little things that I think a small business would love, and really, again, kind of go really dive into their business. I'm going to teach them certain techniques. Listen, they're working 12, 15 hours a day. What they don't want to do at 10 o'clock at night is start looking at their bank statements. So just have your cup of coffee in the morning. Spend 10 minutes. That's all it is, and just look at it. See where you're at, because what you're saying, the lender's going to say.
Right.
And it's good. It's good behavior. It's good each day. Let it be part of your day. And it doesn't have to be. You wait 6 months to look at it, and obviously it's too.
It's too late.
Each day, each week. So my podcast is a lot of that.
And where can they see this?
So it's going to be Anthony the Money Guy.
Yeah.
AnthonyPanzone.com or WallStreetBankingServices.com. And on there, there's going to be links to my podcast.
And you're also on the radio?
I'm on the radio, 1039 LA News Radio. I'm off for the summer. I go back in the fall. So, so I'm excited, and it's it's a local channel, but you can really hear it anywhere.
Yeah.
I had someone from college actually in California say, I heard you. And so, and it's what we're talking about now. It's how to secure financing for a small business.
Fantastic. So you got a lot of things happening.
We're excited. Yes, we're excited.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so nice meeting you.
You as well.
Thanks for joining us. If you know of anybody who might be interested in coming to the show, please reach out at info@nstv.org. Take care.